The 2020 saga continues. It's December and let's face it, we're all just doing a little mental countdown to 2021, cause we ain't got any more patience for this cursed year. In the meantime, wanna hear about a nice trip into a very scenic area in the snowy mountains? Worry not, cause I've got you covered. One of the most bizarre cases I've ever come across is the case of 5 men from the Yuba County, California, who set out to watch a college basketball game one night, only to drive 100 kilometers in a completely different direction, deep into the mountains, and never returned home again. This is the story of the Yuba County 5. On the night of February 24th, 1978, a group of friends left their homes in excitement because they were going to spend a fun night out together, spectating at a basketball game in the nearby town Chico, California. The boys, as everyone referred to the group, were Bill Sterling, Jack Hewitt, Gary Mathias, Ted Weiher, and Jack Madruga. They were enrolled into the local basketball team, Gateway Gators, as part of the program for the mentally challenged, since all of them had intellectual disabilities or psychiatric issues to various degrees. This is an important fact, because on February 25th, the day after the disappearance, Gateway Gators were scheduled to play their first game in a tournament sponsored by the Special Olympics, with the winners getting a free, week-long trip to Los Angeles. Some of the boys even prepared the night before, laid their uniforms out, and made sure to ask their parents to wake them up on time. Because they're responsible adults, unlike a certain someone who only prays for the plans to be cancelled. That night on February 24th, Jack Madruga drove his white and blue 1969 Mercury Montego to pick up his friends, and together they headed for Chico, about 80 kilometers north from their starting point. The destination was the UC Davis versus Chico State basketball game, which they did attend. It was a pretty straight shot, about an hour away from their homes, so when the evening turned into late night, and then early morning, without any word or signs of their return, the parents of each one knew that something went terribly wrong. Reportedly, after the game, the group drove a short distance from the Chico State campus to the nearby Burrs Market in town. According to a witness statement, who was a clerk at the time, she distinctly remembers the 5 men because they walked in right before the store's closing time around 10 p.m. They bought mostly junk food and drinks and then left. That was the last sighting of the 5 men alive. When the morning of February 25th rolled in, and none of the boys returned home, the parents immediately notified the police. You have to understand that the background of these 5 men and their mental and intellectual condition made their lives rather set with habits they hardly ever broke. In the eyes of their families, a spontaneous trip to an unknown area in the mountains was an impossible scenario. Ted Weiher used to be a janitor and a snack bar clerk for a while, but quit after urging from his parents who thought his slowness and disability would just cause trouble. Ted's best friend was Jackie Hewitt, and they were almost inseparable. Jackie had a slight droop to his face and was slow to respond sometimes, but Ted looked after him and would even dial the phone for him whenever Jackie had to make a call to his parents. As a grown-ass adult who still needs an older adult, i.e. my mom, to schedule a doctor's appointment for me, and a person who goes into an instant "oh my fucking god, what kind of caveman is calling me instead of texting" kind of anxiety, Jack Madruga, a high school graduate and an army veteran, was so proud of his Mercury Montego, but whenever he drove it, he would stick to the roads he knew, and was always careful to bring a map of the area. It was no different that night. He had 4 neatly folded maps of California in the car's compartment. William Sterling was Jack's best friend. Deeply religious, he would spend most of his time in 3 locations: at home, at a basketball court, and at the library, reading literature to bring Jesus to patients in mental hospitals. If you don't know what you need in life, it's probably Jesus. The one man that stood out from the group a little bit was Gary Mathias. Also an army veteran, he was discharged due to a severe case of mental health issue, schizophrenia. Gary had to take medications a couple times a day to control the symptoms, so there was no way he could have skipped town for a few days without bringing the drugs with him. Well, that night, he didn't. Well, from what's known, without his meds, Gary would get into manic and sometimes violent episodes, so we're possibly in for a wild ride. A few days after the disappearance and unfruitful search attempts, the police gets a phone call from Plummer National Forest Ranger, who says he had seen Jack Madruga's Montego parked along Oroville Quincy Road up in the forest on February 25th. Since many residents drove up there on winter days for cross-country skiing, he didn't think much of it until he saw the missing persons report with the pictures of that same car. Another tip came from this guy named Joe Shones, who paradoxically had the shittiest and biggest luck in the whole world at the same damn time. Let me explain. So he's driving in the same area on February 24th when suddenly his car gets stuck in the snow. Crap. It's like 5:30 p.m. and getting dark, and he's far from pretty much any signs of civilization. Ah, crap. So what does he do? He tries pushing the car out of the snow, but starts getting a heart attack. Crap to the power of 50,000! About 6 hours later, he recalls, as he sat in the car, he noticed 2 pairs of headlights. One identified as a pickup truck light. He reportedly saw 5 men, 1 woman, and a baby held by her, crying. He said that as soon as he started calling out to them, the headlights were turned off and the voices went silent, ignoring his calls for help. He eventually rested in his car enough to try walking down the mountain, and on the way he passed the 1969 Mercury Montego with no passengers inside. I'm sorry, but I keep picturing this whole incident as a music video. Don't stop believing. Hold on to the feelings. When the police found the Montego and searched through the inside, it was clear that the 5 men had been there sometime between the last sighting at the store and when they abandoned the car. There were empty wrappers, cartons and cans scattered around, along with basketball game programs and maps of California. The questions about what had happened that night kept piling up. Another tip came in and yet another confusing plot twist. On March 3rd, a woman who worked at a small store in Brownsville, about 48 kilometers away from the spot where the Montego was abandoned, told deputies that she saw 4 of the 5 missing men when they stopped at the store, 2 days after their disappearance. The thing is, they were driving a red pickup truck at the time. The description of the men and their behaviors did line up correctly with how the families would describe their loved ones, so the tip was treated seriously, but gave little to no context as to what were they doing in the mountains. So the investigation started kind of stalling. No clues, no boys, no new tips. On June 4th, 1978, a group of motorcyclists went up the mountain when the snow finally melted, heading for the forest trailer maintained by the Forest Service, about 31.2 kilometers away from where the Montego was found. When they reached the trailer, they noticed a broken window, and after opening the door, they were hit by a terrible stench. There on the bed, draped in sheets from head to toe, laid what seemed to be something resembled a mannequin. It's never a mannequin. Never. It was Ted Weiher's decomposing body. The next day, following a road behind the trailer for about 7.2 kilometers, deputies found the remains of Sterling and Madruga. They were partially consumed by scavenging animals, and only bones were left of Madruga. Autopsies showed they both died of hypothermia. Their bodies simply shut down before they could reach shelter. Madruga was clutching the car keys in his hand. 2 days later, Jack Hewitt's father joined the search party, and after walking roughly 3.2 kilometers away from the trailer, he found scattered pieces of clothing, and when he lifted one of them, a spine rolled out. Huh. It was determined that the backbone and the clothes belonged to Jack Hewitt, along with a skull that was later found downhill from the rest, and was confirmed as Hewitt by his dental records. There was, however, no sign of Gary Mathias, the only clue being 2 blankets from the trailer and a flashlight, found in an area northeast of the shelter, as well as Mathias's tennis shoes left inside. Gary has never been found. The findings didn't provide the much-needed closure. Instead, it puzzled the law enforcement and the families even more. The strangest of it all being how Weiher's body was found. Yes, he was wrapped and tucked with blankets, but in a way that would suggest someone else did it for him. His leather shoes were gone, indicating a theory that Gary Mathias took them with him. Ted's cause of death was determined as starvation and hypothermia, despite the fact that the trailer was stocked with canned food and the can opener. The growth of Ted's beard suggested that he had lived for about 13 weeks before he lost to hypothermia. Even more puzzling, the trailer was equipped with matches and a stack of novels that could have been used to start a fire, but the fireplace seemed untouched. Furthermore, there was a supply of thick forestry clothing stored and undisturbed in the closet, when it could have helped the men keep warm. There was also a propane tank with a valve that, had it been opened, would have fueled the trailer's heating system. So, one question remains. Why? Why did they end up there, and why didn't they use what could have saved their lives? Was there foul play involved, or just pure bad luck? Yeah, why? Why? One of the theories suggests that it might have been the lack of common sense, due to the men's mental and intellectual disabilities that led to their eventual death. They might have been afraid to use anything in the trailer, thinking it's a private property and they would be arrested for burglary and theft. I mean, good sense of doing the right thing. Bad timing. The investigators still couldn't explain why the men even ventured into the mountains, not prepared for the cold weather and without the knowledge of the terrain. One speculation was based on the fact that Gary Mathias had friends in the nearby Forbes-town, and it's possible that while driving there, the boys took the wrong turn that put them on the unknown mountain road. It was discovered that on February 23rd, the day before the Yuba County 5 had disappeared, a snowcat vehicle had cut a path to the trailer by pushing the snow aside. Perhaps when the group's Montego got stuck in the snow in an unknown area, they saw it as a signal there's a shelter with people nearby, and followed the trail. It was a walk for 32 kilometers, so it's possible that Sterling, Madruga and Hewitt simply failed to reach the trailer, while Mathias and Weiher did. Gary might have left Ted to look for help, but failed to return in the end. Melba Madruga, Jack Madruga's mother, in an interview with the Washington Post said that she believed some force led the group into the mountains. Quote, "We know good and well somebody made them do it. I'm positive he never went up there on his own. He was either tricked or threatened." End quote. Ted Weiher's sister theorized that the boys may have seen some incident take place after the game, and that resulted in them being chased all the way into the wilderness. There was never any evidence of a pursuit found. But then again, what could have caused the men to be so insistently moving forward? Unless there was something much more frightening behind them. So this was the last video of the year. I'll be taking a break for the holidays to spend some time with my loved ones and stuff myself with all the food, cause that's the reason I even come home. For the goodies! Plus, it's almost the end of this cursed year, and that means we're gonna make yet another resolution to get fit, and then, as one does, we're gonna fail it on January 1st. If you want to be way ahead of everyone with your monthly dose of true crime cases and conspiracy theories, please consider subscribing to support me on Patreon with a cup of coffee a month. Happy holidays, True Crime fam. Stay safe out there and remember to always lock your door. Until the next year.